So as AI explodes onto the scene in a way that we've never seen before from any industry ever in the history of the world, it's starting to become apparent that there are a few real problems with it. And these problems can be extremely harmful if we're not careful. Luckily, blockchain technology can kind of come and save the day here. So today, I'm going to tell you how blockchain can help and a few downsides to the tech as well, because there's always downsides, right? My name is Trent Kennelly. I'm a Web3 marketing strategist, and this is the best place for you to learn about Web3, NFTs, AI, blockchain, and how to market it all. So if that sounds good to you and you're excited, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're into it, comment to let me know what you think about this merger. This is certainly coming, so I'd love to get your thoughts, and let's get started. So AI has a lot of huge benefits, right? It's able to provide information to us in a better, more fluid way than ever before. It's able to help with tasks and provide insights that we might not have seen on our own. It's really an incredible tool for making our lives easier on a professional and a personal level. But there are some problems with it as well as with anything, right? And the first problem here is that AI requires a massive amount of data. So before we dive into that problem deeper, let's just kind of understand what we're working with as far as data is concerned. So here's how AI is typically developed, very, very high level. Okay, we're not getting into code. So there are algorithms, right, to understand speech and interacting with people and kind of making that sound natural. But what I really want to focus on is the fact that the way that computers learn and the way that humans learn is very different. So a human might touch a stove that's hot and they'll scream, ouch, and then they'll go, okay, that hurt, and they'll never do that again, right? But they're also going to learn that things which are hot hurt, right? And things which are warm when they're farther away from you, as they get closer to you, they might get hot and they might hurt, right? So that kind of learning about the relationship of heat to the body is going to save that little human from dozens or hundreds or thousands of burns over their lifetime. An AI, on the other hand, might have hands, right? And then it might touch the stove and register stove is hot, okay? But it's not going to then go over to an iron that's on and register might be hot. It has to touch the iron to register iron is hot. And then it has to touch the fireplace to register fireplace is hot. And on, because computing systems today do not extrapolate. They don't make logical jumps based on information they already possess. They have to experience nearly every scenario out there to be able to react to it appropriately. So clearly, if they need to experience every single action individually, and I mean, I'm sure that that's not always going to be true, but it seems to be the case right now. That means that those systems need a lot of data to be able to do that. So just think about how many times you would have to burn yourself if you were not able to extrapolate. Now take that same idea and apply it to any of the thousands of other potentially dangerous scenarios that you encounter every single day. Avoiding potholes, dodging bikes, healing a cut, maybe there's a computer that's shorting out. It could be anything, right? Now we're taking that same idea and we're looking at everything else, right? So it just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding. We're looking at billions and billions of pieces of data. And here's the really important part. All of that data being consumed is guaranteed to contain misinformation and disinformation, deepfakes and fake news and non-science backed medical advice. These are all getting into the system, which is obviously a problem, but it's worse when you consider that this is one of the leading issues surrounding phantom responses. So a phantom response is one of those responses that the AI is going to give you that is clearly not correct, but it's going to present it as an absolute fact that is unmitigatedly true. And then you have to come back and argue with it, or maybe you don't and you just take it as truth, right? And that is a big reason for distrust in modern day AI. So that was a very long explanation, but here's the question. How are we fixing it with blockchain, right? And the answer is actually pretty simple, because in its most basic, most boiled down form, the blockchain has a single purpose. That purpose is verification and trust. And you might know this next part, you might have heard this before, but for those who don't know it, that trust is built by a global consensus network of decentralized computers corroborating each other's data. This is not Amazon Web Services that holds all your data in a single server system and declares that there is one indisputable truth. This is your computer, my computer, anybody anybody else's computer that's hooked into the blockchain agreeing or disagreeing with those facts before it. And because blockchain is a consensus system, it makes it much more likely that the information being stored inside it is accurate and true. No system is perfect, right? There's always going to be a problem. That's always going to be some hole somewhere, right? But what you can see is that this is drastically improving truth, and it's making it so that you can probably see where this is going. AI is going to eventually need to go through a verification process via blockchain if it really wants to create stronger, better systems for the future. And I'm not just blowing smoke here. This is not me making this up out of thin air. Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, which is the company that created ChatGPT, which is the fastest growing product ever in the history of the world, has just raised yet more money for his own crypto project, WorldCoin. WorldCoin is specifically designed to be an identity-first financial market, meaning that they're building that level of trust right into the front end of their system. And it's open to everyone, as it seems to go with most blockchain products today. So we have Sam Altman creating the biggest AI on the planet, and we have Sam Altman creating a strong trust system through the blockchain. Can we kind of see how this plays together? Now, that's one way these two need to come together, but here's one more: centralization risk. So just going back to that big data issue, remember that to make an AI work well, it needs a lot of data. But there are many competing AI companies, and at this point, they are not sharing that data, right? So what that naturally means is that one of these companies is going to start to gain ground on the rest of them. And really, you can say that one of them did right from the start, which has made it almost impossible for the rest of the market to catch up. It also means that something called a network effect is going to start to develop. So this is the concept that the more people that use something, the more valuable that thing becomes, meaning that the more inputs that we all give ChatGPT, the more it's going to learn and the better it's going to get. And that sounds good on its face until you realize that this creates its own monopolistic environment. It gets us way closer to that single point of truth than really we would like. And it can swing us all the way back to not knowing what to believe anymore, since this one source of truth could easily change the story on us. Blockchain can eliminate that problem too, and it's based on the same ideas of consensus and validation. Crypto, in this case, would be able to provide that validated point of view and offer a counterpoint to the dominance of that AI overlord. Now, it's not always perfect, of course, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that there are a few downsides to this situation as well. The first one I want to talk about is scalability. So both blockchain and AI are big projects, but they also kind of work opposite each other. AI's job is to absorb as much information as it can, as quickly as it can. But blockchain's job is to validate information, and it is notoriously slow, right? So you're looking at a bottleneck between these two sides of the coin. The blockchain validation process being slower is going to severely impact the speed at which the AI can take in information, which means that in an impatient world, people are waiting much longer for the correct data to show up as opposed to just the data in front of them, right? Which might sound like a shut up and deal with it situation, but people are notoriously impatient and they're likely to abandon the honest platform for the fast one. It's just human nature, that's how we are. But it definitely makes a difficult job harder when you're just trying to get it right and have the right information in front of people. And then of course we need to talk about the downside of the environmental impact. There is no possibility of debating the environmental impact of the blockchain. It's quite bad. And if it isn't fixed, it's going to create some serious problems down the road. But if we don't fix it and then we start pumping massive amounts of data through AI platforms, that's just going to ramp up the problem. And I think I'd be beating a dead horse by talking about the amount of data you need to push through the system. We get that. You also have already learned about the bottleneck that that's going to create in the validation process. But what I want you to think about is what happens when your computer starts working hard. It gets hot, right? It produces some extra heat. Now do that for every exchange in the validation process, and you can start to see the heat that's going to build up and the problem that's really going to cause. So there you go. There are some wonderful and terrible things about the joinder of blockchain and AI. I think it's going to be a really interesting future to watch. And I think ultimately it's a good thing, but we have to solve these problems that are vital. So let me know what you think about this. If you think it's a problem, if you're looking forward to this change, I would love to get your thoughts. Otherwise, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're into it, and I will catch you in the next one.